First question, what are you modeling to your family and the people around you? I was raised in a house of partiers. My mom and dad always had people over and were shooting up heroin, smoking weed, and drinking. Me and my older brother copied what was being modeled. When I was 3, my brother was 6, we'd go take my parents' beer and lit joints and try to do what they were doing while they were nodding off on heroin. Shortly after, my dad left. My mom went through a few boyfriends. She finally remarried an abusive guy. They still did drugs. They just traded heroin for meth. Some of the anger that was built up in them led to me getting beat all the time. Don't get me wrong, I was no angel. I was a bad kid. Not that I'm justifying their actions, but I definitely was a bad kid. I remember having handprints on my face from being held down and smacked so many times. And a couple times I couldn't sit because I'd been whooped so bad. I don't know how many bars of soap and cans of lima beans I ate. I hate lima beans. I'm like Lima Bean Scar. They haunt me in my dreams. That's supposed to be funny. We got locked in our room. There was a little latch that would lock us in. We'd have to knock on the door to get out. And had to write thousands of sentences. I became a professional sentence writer. I won't. Do this, do this, do this. I wrote those so many times I'd be shooting sheets out, just filling them out. Thousands of sentences. About 4th or 5th grade, I decided I was tired of life, and I ran away. My dad ended up in prison for 7 years because his addiction led him to robbing houses, amongst other crimes. He got so bad, I became such a slave to the beast, he was eating out of trash cans and everything else. So what was modeled to me at a young age was drugs and abuse. See, my parents believed the lie that drugs and alcohol were going to give them life to the fullest. They were running from their own childhood hurts and pains. So with seeing that, my question to you is this. Pause this after you do that and write it down. What needs to change in your life? Next question. What are the effects of what you're modeling to your family and the people around you? Naturally, as I got older, that's where I went. I got into sex, drugs, and alcohol. I started robbing people and houses, selling drugs, and shooting at people. I stole from my mom, my friends' parents, really anyone who I could. I was as scandalous as they come. Everyone and everything was a means to an ends for me. If someone had something I wanted, I took it or I talked them out of it. I looked for a weakness that I could exploit for my own gain, and I did that. I was abusive. I cheated on all my girlfriends. I was out trying to have sex with anything that moved. I talked multiple girls into having abortions. Life had no value to me. It meant nothing. I didn't care if I lost it or I took it. I was full of anger and hate. As I got older, the crimes got more and more. I robbed both my neighbors' houses, which we knew. I got a knife from one. I traded that knife to my brother who was frying off of acid for some acid. Long story short, cops got called for a man with a knife. When they showed up, my brother took off running around through the apartment complex. They chased him. He ended up getting back to where it started, jumped in the cop car and started to take off. The cops shot the whole cop car up, opened the door and let his body fall to the street, face down, dead. See, I carried the weight of that death for years because I gave him the knife that started that. I moved to AZ shortly after. things went even more downhill. I had already dropped out of school in Cali, but I thought I'd give it a shot out here. I got kicked out of school within 3 months for fighting and selling drugs. I ended up going to Job Corps and got forcefully graduated from there. But I got my GED and I learned a trade. I met even more connections, and we'd hit up the doble on the south side for 10 pounds all the time. I ended up having a son, and I let him throw my beer bottles away with a little bit I'd saved in there for the bottom. Till one day, I saw him getting tipsy. I thought I better stop doing this. He's 2 at this point. He walks into my room, picks up my lighter, puts it to the bong, and puts his mouth to it like he's gonna hit it. I thought to myself, I have to change, because he's gonna end up just like me. I was chasing life to its fullest, but I believed the lie that I'd find it in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The question for yourself now is, what damage has your actions caused for you and others? What God has showed you in this, pause it. Get you some skin in the game. Write it down. Through the blood of Jesus, we find redemption. I didn't grow up in church. I know I was bad and needed forgiveness. I came from dirt and I was dirt. My idea of church was going with my grandma as a kid so we can get IHOP afterwards, because we didn't get food like that. I was at really rock bottom in my life. I basically robbed everyone around me, split from my son's mom. I let my house get foreclosed, my vehicle repossessed, and my 2-year-old kid is trying to hit my bong. I said, God, I don't know if you're real, but if you are, show me, because I really want to know. I had an old King James Version Bible that I took from my grandma's church a long time ago. I started to read it. I started praying and genuinely seeking God. Please, God, if you're real, show me. Jeremiah 29:13. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. It was about a week or so. I was really going hard in the paint. That's for you basketball fans. I'm seeking the truth of God. I was digging in. God, I want to know. Help me. I was already rapping at the time. During that week, I read James 1:5-8. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting, for one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. See, that hit home for me. So I was going to put it in a rhyme. The night before I was about to go to bed, I noticed I left the Bible open on the side of the couch. I'm one of those people. I got to close the books, close the Bible, put this away here, put that here, shut the light off before I go to bed. But that night I said, hey, maybe God will have something to me. And I just left it. Let me paint the scene. It's summertime. I turned my mom's garage into a room. I got the fan blowing because it's hot. I got a beat playing and I'm writing rhymes. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the pages blowing over of the Bible. I didn't think much of it. I was focused on writing. I wasn't paying attention. Then I noticed one page kept blowing up and falling back down, blowing up and falling back down. I thought, hey, maybe God's trying to tell me something. I should read it. So I grabbed it and read it. It was about being saved. And bam! Right there, Jesus saved me. Took the weight of the world off my shoulders. Jesus took it. Through his blood, I found redemption. It was a true Saul of Paul conversion. It was like he reached down from heaven and said, my son, your sins are healed. we reading the Bible? I wish I could say after that, I floated around the earth like a butterfly, like an angel, and just shared the gospel. But that wasn't the case. I was changed forever. Jesus saved me with his redeeming blood. He rocked my world. I went into the Peter phase, where you learn, you grow, you learn, you grow. I joke with Pastor Ray, because he says you're either the Paul or the Peter way. Yeah, I was the guy that needed both. Imagine that with what you heard already. That was a joke, by the way. Next question. Has Jesus healed the damage your actions have caused? If not, pray for healing and make the changes necessary to cultivate it. Pause that and write it down. Next question. Now that you've seen redemption, where else do you need it? And how will you lay a hold of it? So now I'm saved. I'm on top of the world. I found out what it means to live life to the fullest and be washed through the blood of Christ. And it's amazing. I'm saved. I'm free. But I got a lot of areas that need to be redeemed through the blood of Christ. One of the first things God taught me was about trusting him and tithing. And the church didn't tell me to write this. It's all right. I'm not trying to take an offering. That's a joke. I was at church trying to figure all this out. I didn't know. And they were collecting money. My mind says, heck no, I ain't giving them no money. I don't have that much, and I don't know what they're going to do with it. The pastor said, hey, if you got $7, give it. So I did. And I kid you not, the next day on my paycheck, I got overpaid $140 because of a mistake with overtime. And they told me, don't worry about it. Keep it. Over time, multiple things happen like that. See, God was building in me to trust in him. It's not about what the church does or the money, but trusting God and furthering his kingdom. At this point, I got 21 years of baggage and ways I think things need to be done. But that needs to change now. I always thought, you make your kids do what they want, what you want, and they should fear you. So that's how I ran my house. It was a dictatorship. I say, you do, or feel the wrath. When something would happen, even if it was little, I'd flip out screaming, yelling, and cussing. That's abuse. It also scars our families with fear. It embeds deep-rooted hurts and baggage in our families. I did that for years and didn't realize the damage I was causing in the process. I'm still to this day repairing this damage. I have acknowledged and asked for forgiveness multiple times from my wife and kids. I've changed and act in love most of the time now, even though I still fail. But that fear I've instilled is tough to break. They still respond as if I'm going to flip out like I used to. It's not about beating them into submission, but loving them into the submission of Jesus. Then you put a blended family with a wife that's the exact opposite of me. And boy, did we have some wars. She's all chick, I'm all man. She grew up in church, I grew up in the streets. She's all rhinestone and flowers. I'm like a package of bandages should last your entire life. And that's true, by the way. Stop wasting Band-Aids. That's a joke. She was fearful. I was dominant. She was always scared to be honest. And that drove me nuts. I was always right. She was was always wrong. Well, maybe once in a while she was right. That's a joke. Smile. I'd make a mess, and it would drive her nuts. She actually used to think I'd make a mess and leave it for her just so she'd have to clean it up. That wasn't the case. Her OCD would just kick in before mine would. It wasn't until the Holy Spirit started revealing to me how many things I was doing wrong that I learned to show my wife and kids grace in their mistakes. Show grace. We all make mistakes. What I didn't realize at the time is my weaknesses were her strengths and vice versa. So once we got past our own selfish wants and needs, we realized God made a dream team. We could lean on each other to see the other side we weren't able to see. And it helped us be more effective in sharing the kingdom. Pray with your wives, men. It makes a huge difference. I struggled with this for years, but recently I started doing this, and man, it's made a huge impact. It draws us closer together, and also our teamness for the kingdom, if that's a word. You can't beat your spouse and kids into submission, but through your redemption, you can share that loving submission to Jesus, and they'll see it. Because do what I say, not what I do, does not work. They're watching our actions. How will you respond? Over the years, I realized this is my wife and kids, my family. And here I am hating on them, hurting and abusing them. I was reacting instead of God-inspired intentional living, and it had to change. Men, we're called to be leaders of our house and our communities. God has you watching this right now as a divine appointment. It's not by accident. Dig in, take serious what you learn, and watch what God does. My challenge to you is this. Use what God showed you through this to help lift up your family. Don't believe the lie that beating them into submission will fix anything, because it won't. Let's show them the grace and love that will push them into the submission of Jesus, healing them. The question is, take a minute to write down what that will look like. Make a plan so you can pull it off. Work the plan. Cultivate it. Seek out accountability by asking some brothers from church or close to you that you can share to help you live redeemed. Men, grab a hold of what God just stirred up in you and make a change. Ask for forgiveness. Change your ways that you don't realize we're abusing our families and the people around us. Let us show them Jesus and the love and submission to the cross. Take time. Pause. Hit the pause button on this. Write it down what God has showed you. And make the plan